Now to our exclusive interview with the First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska, and former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Madam Zelenska, I'll start with you. If you could please tell us what the situation is in your country, in Ukraine, for women and families, especially with so many displaced.
The situation is really difficult. We have more than 7 million women and children, primarily, who have been displaced abroad. We do not call them refugees. We call them temporarily displaced persons, because they really want to come back. More than 6 million Ukrainians have been displaced inside Ukraine, again mostly women and children. So you can imagine the situation when a woman loses her normal routine, her normal work, and has to move quickly to a different place. And doesn't matter if it's a different country or a different region, it's still a change, a massive change in her life. And sometimes she fears it's forever. And so the situation is really difficult.
And many of these families want to come home.
The majority.
There's a debate in America and across the world about what we should be doing to help Ukraine, what Ukraine needs now more than ever. What would you tell the people in the United States? What are your greatest needs?
First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the help that we have already received. It's been right to give this help. Somebody perhaps thinks that it's out of place for a president's wife to ask for weapons, but I will ask for it because it's our salvation. It's the salvation of people who are shelled by missiles, by Iranian drones. It's the salvation for our armed personnel in the front line. They are defending their country. And of course, we must continue with this help, because any delay right now would be very dangerous. The second aspect of what we need is to hear us, tell our stories to everyone who will hear them. We need to hear voices for change. We need the voices of opinion leaders, because still some people in the world believe that it's not so simple, it's not so black and white, and you could have another opinion about the tragedy that is happening in Ukraine. This is a war of invasion, and that's it.
Madam Secretary, you know better, I think, than anybody alive about partisanship in the United States and what it's cost our country. The Ukrainian war has been one thing that's brought Democrats and Republicans together for the most part. Are you hopeful that that will continue, despite the fact some House Republicans are being critical of the Biden administration, and even Republicans that are supporting the war effort?
Well, I am hopeful that it continues, Joe, because I think, as we just heard, this is a war of aggression and invasion. The behavior of the invaders has been barbaric, and it really is a war for not just the freedom of the Ukrainian people, although that is first and foremost. It is a war for our values, for what we believe should be the birthright of every person in Ukraine, in Europe, in the United States, around the world. So I want to underscore that as we support the courage and the extraordinary commitment of the Ukrainian people, their government, their army, their citizens, we're not doing it just because it's the right thing to do, although it is. We're doing it because we have to draw this line and make it very clear that in 2023, this kind of aggression cannot stand.
Isn't it remarkable over the past 5-6 years in the United States, we've had an opportunity to understand just what democracy and freedom means at home. And now we look to what's happening in Ukraine and all these things we talk about growing up that we learn to suddenly the Ukrainians are fighting for what we've always said we were supposed to stand for. How inspiring is that to you?
It's so inspiring to me, and I hope it is inspiring to every American, particularly those in positions to make decisions, because we have to continue, and I would even argue increase the military support that we give to the Ukrainians
sooner. Does that
sooner.
include F-16s?
Well, it includes air cover, it includes long-range missiles, it includes much more defensive systems, and not just from us, but from our NATO allies and others. But they are on the front lines of freedom, and we need to support that. And we have to provide the humanitarian assistance that is so desperately needed for the Ukrainian people, both in the country and then, as the First Lady says, those who are displaced temporarily outside the country.
Madam Zelenska, can you please talk about the challenges that your people are facing and tell the world what they need to know?
I think that the war is an everyday challenge, and everyone in Ukraine is risking their life, even just by being inside the country. Just now, as we speak, the whole of Ukraine is troubled by the video of the Russian occupiers killing a Ukrainian soldier for just saying glory to Ukraine. Every time I speak in the international arena, I finish my speeches with this phrase. It means that I also would have been a subject of their hatred, object of their hatred, if they were to meet me. Some horrible cases of behavior of occupiers towards the local population, the local civilians. A massive amount of rapes, not only of the women, the majority, of course, of the women, but there are also cases of men and boys. The General Prosecution Service is now investigating 171 cases of rape by different means, of different kinds. They are extremely inventive in how they think of these, think up of these horrible tortures, but there's only 171 cases of the people who were able, found it in themselves to talk about it. The majority of the people are silent because they're scared of the invaders coming back, they're afraid of judgment, they're just scared. So these things are happening all the time, and these things are terrible. And every time we open or we liberate another territory, sometimes we rejoice, and then we start worrying about what we're going to find there. Torture chambers, mass graves, etc. This war is not being waged with rules, conventional rules of war. It's medieval.
Madam Secretary, I just want to hear your thoughts hearing from the First Lady, Olena Zelenska, right here before your eyes. Thoughts, advice, what your feelings are about having a First Lady in this position, speaking her mind, asking for weapons, telling the stories of her people.
I am extraordinarily impressed by the mission she has undertaken. This is our second meeting. The first was in New York when she talked about what her people need now. And she's been tireless in advocating to the rest of us to provide not just weapons, but humanitarian assistance and support in every way. And I just want people to just stop for a minute, put aside all the partisanship and the politics and the divisiveness, and just think as a human being. Think as a parent. Think as a concerned citizen. What she just said about what's happening in her country. The Russians are also kidnapping thousands of children. They invade areas and they steal Ukrainian children and ship them into Russia, and then, create these phony adoptions. Think of what that would be like in your family, anyone you know. I just cannot express strongly enough that if you look back at history, you sometimes wonder, what would I have done? What would I have said or tried to understand or maybe feel? And there is no place for anybody in America to look at what's happening in Ukraine and come to any other conclusion than we have got to stay the course to help in every way that we can.
Madam Zelensky, do you believe that the world is doing enough? Do you believe America's doing enough? Do you believe? I know you got an opportunity to meet MBZ here, and you all had good conversations, and you talked about the resolutions that they've supported. Great news about the Saudis giving $400 million in humanitarian aid this past week. Glad to see that. But is Europe doing enough? Is Germany doing enough? Your husband, he's not afraid to speak his mind, as you know.
She's not either.
Do you think? I know. I was just curious. So, is Germany doing enough? Or the French doing enough? Is Europe doing enough? Is the United States doing enough?
The whole world has been able to see over the last year that we are patient. We are patiently waiting for help. We wish for this help, and we put enough pressure, just enough so that we can see that our partners will support us, but it needs to speed up. I think you understand. If you've perhaps heard the news that Ukraine has received the first Patriots, everyone in Ukraine knows this. Children know this. Children know what HIMARS is. Children know what a Leopard tank is. Children shouldn't know this. Children shouldn't take an interest in this. But this illustrates just how much we need this help, because every child in Ukraine knows that we need more. We need faster, and I hope that those who are still delaying will stop delaying, and those who have not done anything so far will at least not do anything to help our enemies.